Hello, intactivists. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about a monumental bill, HB-94, set forth by Health Equality Campaign. This is in New Hampshire. The bill was being processed and heard about in the House Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs, and it was about an hour and 42 minutes long. So I'm going to give you guys a summary to make this way quicker for you guys on who said what and what side they were on. So it was going to save you quite a bit of time. Also, guys, as I'm going through this, just a disclaimer, I'm going to be summarizing what representatives and people said, entertainment purposes only. This is just to get a glimpse of what really happened that day. Let's first start with Julius Soti. He supports the bill. He talked about how he is intact and how he has no issues with his foreskin, just like most of the world doesn't. He talks about how places in Europe and Canada don't really circumcise. He draws the distinction between separation of church and state, that they should be focused on secular reasons and not religious reasons. He states there is no medical reason to do it, but the history of circumcision was used for medical reasons, but it was because of bad science that does not apply today. He talks about people who are circumcised as an infant, and they shouldn't be able to state, I know what I'm missing, because they don't have a foreskin, so how could they know? He also says that FGM defenders use the exact same reasons as MGM defenders do. He warned and or threatened that Eric Klopper is suing states and that he will soon be coming to New Hampshire, so they can be preemptive about it. Jonah Wheeler, he supports the bill. He stated that he didn't support state-sanctioned circumcision. He said it didn't have the benefits that pro-circumcision people are saying it has. It's not about the money, even though Medicaid shouldn't be covering elective procedures. He did get questioned by the guy I marked in a red arrow. He argued that he got an elective procedure done through Medicaid for his hip. So what do you mean it shouldn't be covered? And because of this caused Jonah Wheeler to walk back his statement and changed it a little bit to circumcision should just not be covered by Medicaid. Adrienne Soti, she talks about how she kept all her children intact. She talks about how Americans are sold a lie and doctors aren't sharing critical information. She talks about why not just clean versus cutting your foreskin off. She talks about how mohills don't get reimbursed for their circumcision on the 8th day of life, and neither Muslim when the boy is nearing puberty, but hospitals do it within a few hours and they get reimbursed. Ellen Reed, she says even though this is an emotionally charged subject, if you look at the facts, neonatal non-medical circumcision is mutilation. She talked about how much it costs to do circumcisions, saying that the problem per infant is 1 in 6, all the way up to 1 in 20, depending on how you define complications or a problem. And then she answered how many boys may need a circumcision later in life. She answered that's about 1 in 16,000. A person did ask her about the vitamin K shot, and that is that used to aid in circumcision. She said that it is low cost, but does believe that is a treatment and that does apply. All right, next is Lori Ebbets. She supports the bill and she's a member of Brohim. She spent 40 years helping others understand the function of foreskin. She's also Jewish as well. She talks a little bit about the function and how gruesome the surgery is, then talks about the medical uses for foreskin once they cut it off. She also talks about how circumcision is pushed on older men and boys for no medical reason, or there's better alternatives to circumcision. She talks about how many men who come to her in secret to vent their pains of their botched circumcisions. She got asked 3 questions. One notable time was when she was asked, why was this done in the past? And she said, to inflict pain and stop masturbation. Next was Dr. Joseph Harder. He talks about how doctors solicit parents who don't want to circumcise their children and pressure them due to cosmetics, then informed evaluation of the practical risks and benefits of the surgery. He brought up that the AAP statement on circumcision intentionally expired 7 years ago. Currently, no medical organization recommends this surgery on healthy children. He quoted New Hampshire law and medical doctrine that circumcision is currently breaking both of them. He got asked a question about is there backlash if physicians don't perform the procedure. He answered yes, with certain organizations that physicians work for may pressure them, even though physicians understand there are more literature supporting there's more pronounced long and short-term risk are refusing to perform the surgery, but there are physicians willing to do so. David Grant from Intaction supports the bill. He talked about his life and his experience as a victim of MGM. Peter Adler, he set out to prove that it is unlawful for physicians to perform the operation, much less get it funded by the state. Also, that physicians are constituting fraud by using state funds to circumcise. David from 34th West Street in Manchester, even the chairperson had issues reading his last name, but he does support the bill. He reviewed medical past of circumcision with them. He also covered the conflict of interest of the AAP and that the AAP can't find a good reason to reinstate circumcision as medically necessary. Kelly Penza, she is horrified what's going on with this country. She talks about selling of the foreskin, and there is a push to do it, and there's no informed consent because of the money doctors make. Organogenesis is the organization she mentions. She talks about how doctors are taking advantage of Medicaid to prey on low-income families for organ harvesting. She also said, if the medical establishment is being ethical, why the secrecy? In a more long-winded version, that's what she said. She got a lot of representatives stirred up over the outrageous, uninformed tissue selling. And then Anthony Squadro finished up for the pro-intact team. All right, Paige Bushman. She assists physicians in doing circumcisions. She does state that circumcision is not medically necessary. She says she is in agreement with most of the anti-circumcision information they will hear. She believes we should dramatically decrease circumcision and that it is a bodily autonomy issue. She just wants the patients to be able to choose circumcision for their sons and not have to worry about paying for it. She then says that if circumcision is as bad as we say it is, we should just ban it outright. But if we aren't convinced, we should be having Medicaid cover it. All right, like that's kind of all or nothing with Paige. Apparently, imagine if we did that with alcohol. You should either ban alcohol or make it free for everyone. It has religious and cultural significance. No age limit either, until we are convinced that alcohol is truly bad. I'm sorry. Anyways, back to the summary, guys. She did reiterate that a lot of information is not getting to the parents about maternal health and that she is working on it. She got a question from that guy, the other old guy next to the other guy that talked about elective procedures, about didn't they cut circumcision coverage in Florida, and then didn't the expenses actually rise and costed more? Even though Paige didn't know the actual story, she did say that's why it's so important to educate people on this first, to not have infections that could be very costly. She also said in the fiscal note, it does say that this may decrease or increase state spending by $100,000, so there may be a potential increase in spending. She also said the online opposition, I guess it's the opposition to have state Medicaid keep circumcision, it's 150 out of the 172 are out of state. She just wanted to bring that up. All right, Jess Edwards. At first, it did seem like he supported the bill, but then he actually doesn't. He doesn't like the sniping approach of going through one procedure at a time and how they should be talking about types of care, not specific elements of care. He says if we just got rid of cosmetic surgeries, that would cover clitorectomies for the females that Medicaid should not be covering. So instead of doing one bill at a time, they should stay at a conceptual level and leave the medical profession to interact with their patients. He got a question about the cost, and it was from a woman that this arrow is pointing to in the picture. She questioned him about how she comes from a family where 3 boys had to have circumcisions done later in life because they didn't get the proper training or knowledge. You know, I'm thinking at this point, just watching it, that this board in New Hampshire seems to be stacked with pro-circumcision people. But she ended up asking about will they end up saving or spending more money to actually cut circumcision out of their budget, and he had a long-winded answer of, I don't know. The other woman to the left asked, if we take Medicaid funding from the parents, do you think parents on Medicaid will see this as a parental rights issue because now people on low income can't afford circumcisions, and that low income parents have less parental choice than those on private insurance? Edward, in my opinion, nailed this answer. He said, you can separate parents' choice and state to pay for a service. We aren't banning the procedure. And then finally, someone asked, do you support the bill? And he answered, while well-intentioned, it seems to me like it is a horse-drawn wagon going down the wrong trail fast. That is pretty much a direct quote from him. Rabbi Robin Nafi is from Jewish Clergy Association of New Hampshire. She opposed the bill for religious reasons. She also claims that reading this as a rabbi, that this bill is targeting Jews and Muslims for a procedure that is ritually demanded and ritually standard, and claims this is a violation of the First Amendment of free speech. Now, if we just look at the numbers here, 11 people support the bill, 3 people oppose the bill. So this bill, we don't know if it got passed or not. If you look at the General Court of New Hampshire, HB-94, you can see that this is still in committee, but it's due out March 6, 2025. So this is when you should have an answer right here. If you do break down the numbers, this lasted for about an hour and 42 minutes. With 14 people going, I would guess about 14 minutes of that meeting was just people getting up and getting situated and getting their notes ready and then leaving. So for about 1 hour and 28 minutes, you had 27 minutes of people opposing the bill and 61 minutes of people supporting the bill. And even though the pro-intact team outnumbered those who opposed the bill, it wasn't as a huge margin as it was last year. I know 2 intactivist companies that were represented this time watching it. It was Brahim and Intaction. And even the woman that was on Brahim's side, I tried to look her up to get her name, and she's not even mentioned on the board. So I guess she's just a member of Brahim. But anyways, it was just 2 intactivist companies that represented. I mean, if you compare what happened last year to the hearing, this hearing is just very lackluster. I know it was one less bill getting pushed, though, which I don't know why they didn't try for 2 bills. I'm just confused. If we just go back to, last year, you had Intact America, Norm, 15 Square, Bloodstained Man, Arc Law, 10 plus more pro-intact speakers. All right here. You had Gowdaf even gave a representative. I don't know. It was way more like hype last year. And I don't know where these groups were. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they had better to do. It was very frustrating for me to see that, actually. And there also wasn't really any fanfare from Intaction. If you go to the Intaction channel, this is like the only video in the past 3 months about it, about the New Hampshire bill push. This was 8 months ago. I mean, that was such a long time ago, 8 months ago, so wasn't a lot of videos about it. But the last time you had the New Hampshire bill, 2 right here. But granted, that was right after the thing took place, right after the hearing took place. So we'll see if Intaction posts more videos and makes more content about this. But it just didn't seem like very pushed and promoted as much as it was last year. And even if you click on this, you have to go through the intro, and he talks about joining Intaction, and then the legislative outreach is at 5:40 right here, where he finally starts talking about it. So you would have to get through all of this first to get to the main point, and this was what's causing young men to fall behind, Wall Street Journal. Maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not sure. And even New Hampshire only got put on for maybe 2 minutes on this video. I mean, you can click here. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you guys real quick.
In New Hampshire, we await the next session of the legislature to reintroduce our 2 bills for another attempt at passage.
So right there, you see that he was going to do 2 bills. I don't know what happened. He only did 1 bill. So yes, I don't know. It's just my initial thoughts on it. I don't know. To me, it just wasn't an improvement I would like to see from last year. It feels that a lot of people got disinterested in New Hampshire, which I feel like the push should have been harder, not softer. But, I'm just a dumb VTuber. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm curious what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.